Welcome in, Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. Brendan Glasheen back in the host chair, joined by Sean Zerillo. It is Monday, October 7th. The American League and National League playoffs resume. We'll start American League on this Monday, National League Tuesday, after Sunday night's action with the Phillies scraping and clawing to get their first win in their DS series over the Mets, and the Padres take care of the Dodgers. That was quite the scene yesterday at Dodger Stadium, 10-2. The Padres and Dodgers are now even one game apiece. So we head to Monday. American League series resumes. Tigers, Guardians at 4:08 Eastern, and then the Royals and the Yankees resume their series at 7:38 p.m. Eastern, both home field advantage teams, both higher seeds with a 1-0 series lead. Okay, Sean, so quickly, before we get into it, any reaction to the Dodgers-Padres thing last night as far as what that might mean going forward with that series?
Well, Freddie Freeman left with an injury. Luis Arraez, Xander Bogaerts seem a little bit banged up, hobbling a little bit. So there's some injuries going on in that series. But Freddie Freeman getting pulled out of the lineup in what was still, I believe, a 3-run game with that ankle injury, that is a concerning sign. For sure. You know, that game was still within reach, still competitive. And they pulled him out of the lineup, trying to give him an extra day of rest, I guess, before games 3 and 4. So I'm projecting Freeman is in, fully healthy for the rest of the series. And I still only make the Dodgers about 50%. The Padres reopened up at about plus 105 for the series last night. I see they're down to about minus 105 today. So I would assume money has come in on the Padres, assuming that Freeman either isn't at 100% or that there's a chance he may miss one of the remaining games in this series. So it is essentially a coin flip right now, and also Phillies and Mets, both series minus 110 to go to 5 games at this point, minus 110 for the over 4.5 games in both series. So essentially a coin flip for both series right now to go the distance. That is roughly what I projected to, both at 50%. So I think we may get 2 longer series in the NL playoffs. I have the Padres to win by 1.5 games, so I'm hoping they take care of business at home. And also my Mets, I'm hoping they take care of business at home because they've never won or they've never clinched a playoff series at Citi Field. So for my rooting purposes, for my fandom purposes, and for my futures, I'm hoping both of these teams take care of business at home. But it's honestly hard not to imagine either or both of those series going to Game 5.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like coming back into this seat, having missed the first week, and I'm like, wow, what if you snap your finger at how into it you are as far as just getting through the end of September into these October playoff games. Excellent theater, especially on that National League side.
Yeah.
Were the Padres more of an average defensive team? Like you said, that was like one of your concerns. And what do you know? They made, I don't know, I counted half a dozen amazing plays defensively in that game yesterday.
That Profar catch is one of the best I've ever seen. Just incredible. He went like 3 rows deep, full extension, and then the celebration after, and the jumping up and down, and the fans like interacting with him, I thought was great too. Obviously, it devolved into a pretty chaotic situation later in the game, but in the moment, that was one of my favorite baseball moments in a long time.
Tatis too had a catch to Rob Ohtani of a hit. It was fantastic. So
Tatis, the 4th highest OPS for a player through I think their first 5 playoff games of a playoff ever as well. He has a 667 average and a OPS over 2,000.
What a difference maker. And we really didn't feel it at the tail end of the regular season because they're just playing out the string, and the Padres played well, and Tatis is a factor in these big playoff games. So.
He had a big September though. It was very quiet because they were just playing so well as a team, but he was crushing in September. And with him and Machado, they have 2 legitimate stars. You compare these teams, head to head, right? The Dodgers, Ohtani, Freeman, Betts. Well, the Padres, Machado and Tatis, like they fit right in with 2 of those 3 guys. And I think the depth, obviously the Dodgers lineup is a little better, but I give the Padres a huge pitching advantage. So I think people overlook the quality, not only of like overall contact and depth throughout the Padres lineup, but also the star power. Don't discount how impactful of a player Tatis is, how impactful Machado has been for 5-8 years now. The Dodgers picked him up as a significant contributor back when they were making the World Series run. So these are 2 superstars. And I think the Dodgers trio sort of like, there's this cloud that sort of like hangs over everybody else, but the Padres have 2 legitimate superstars in the middle of their lineup. And Jackson Merrill may be a 3rd.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because like consumers' timelines are off. They thought the Padres were supposed to be this good like last year. And that just didn't they put it together. So I know
Preller kept rolling the dice, and he finally hit 7 this year.
Yeah. So I know we don't really do recaps. We got to get to the games today, but I haven't been here, so I just thought, excellent stuff.
Absolutely.
Excellent stuff so far. So, okay, let's dive into these two games today. Tigers, Guardians, 1-0 series lead for Cleveland. They look very good. They shut out the Tigers in game number 1. Skubal's on the mound, though, for Detroit. Matthew Boyd on the mound for the Guardians. Tigers are short favorites with Skubal on the mound. Totals at 6. What's your play here?
Yeah, I mean, I have the utmost respect for Skubal. I bet him Cy Young, obviously, coming into the year, but also I rate him still as the second best pitcher in baseball behind Paul Skeens. And it's not that I've downgraded Skubal at all. I've just upgraded Skeens to the point where he's slightly ahead of Tarik Skubal, but he's still the best pitcher for me in the American League. However, I can't get the Guardians to home underdogs in this matchup. I made them about -112, and that was really like accounting for Skubal pitching 85% of this game. I had to aggressively move Skubal to, the most contributing factor into this game that I possibly could. And I still make the Guardians slight home favorites at -112. So anything plus 100, even money or better on Cleveland would be a bet for me on the money line. But I do also like the under in this matchup, and I do expect Skubal to pitch well. I projected this total at 5.8, would bet the under 6.5 to about -117. So in terms of the offensive splits, the Guardians have the better offense for me in general. But if both teams are going to face a left-handed pitcher, the Guardians have a particular offensive advantage. That was their better split on the season. You go back 2 years ago, I don't think they hit lefties at all. They actually hit well against, they were closer to league average against righties. They were 30th against lefties. Now they're actually top 10 against left-handed pitching, closer to league average against right-handed pitching. And over the second half, these teams were 11th and 26th respectively against left-handed pitching. But the bigger difference is the strikeout rate. The Guardians were second in strikeout rate against left-handed pitching, 18%. The Tigers were 30th in strikeout rate against lefties at 30%. So in terms of swing and miss, putting the balls in play, what I always talk about in the playoffs, the biggest advantage you could have offensively is just not striking out. You look at the Padres box scores from the past couple of days, they just keep putting the ball in play. Jack Flaherty didn't get any strikeouts against them. Yamamoto in game 1 didn't really generate a ton of strikeouts against them. They do not swing and miss. And that is what the Guardians kind of do in the American League. They just put the ball in play. And that is why I prefer their offense in this series and why I prefer their offenses when both are facing left-handed starters. Boyd should get a lot of whiffs today. Skubal is going to have to work a little bit harder for it. He doesn't give up anything particularly tough in terms of hard contact, but I would still give Cleveland the offensive advantage. I think defensively, base running, they're actually pretty comparable. May give Detroit a slight edge in that area. But if you like, and as I said, I like Cleveland in the under in this matchup, but if you like Detroit to come back in this series, I'm going to talk about something very similar with Detroit and with Kansas City regarding exact series outcome or exact order props. It's worded differently at FanDuel and DraftKings. One of them calls them exact series outcome. One of them calls them exact order props. Now, you can find an opening pitch every day. I'm projecting out odds for each of these teams to win the series in 3 games, in 4 games, in 5 games, win 3-1, win 3-2, etc. But in the case of Detroit and Kansas City, they're going to have Tarik Skubal and Cole Reagans on full rest in games 2 and games 5. They need essentially to win both of those games down 1-0. They're not likely going to lose game 2 and win games 3, 4, and 5. And that is factored into the price for either of those teams to win 3-2. So you can bet both of those teams at better odds to do the same thing, win games 2 and games 5 in the exact order market. And you could get them game 2 and game 5 with either game 3 at 12-1 or game 4 at 22-1. You can find the explanation for that in, again, opening pitch on actionnetwork.com. I explain what the bet looks like, where to find it, but I just want to point out there are oftentimes better ways to bet the same outcome at better odds. And this is one of those circumstances. The Tigers and the Royals are not advancing to the ALCS without winning games 2 and games 5 of their series. And instead of betting their prop right now at about 6-1, 7-1 to win the series 3-2, you can get better odds on their exact series order prop to win game 2, game 5, and then either game 3 or game 4 at alternate odds, about 12-1 and 22-1 respectively for the Tigers. And I'll talk about with the Royals in a minute, 17-1 and 22-1 respectively. So big juicier ways to play those teams to take game 2 today and then take game 5, ultimately getting there.
Interesting. So you'd just be flip-flopping 3 and 4. You'd play both of those.
Exactly. Kind of like how we structure the round 2, round 3 props for UFC fights. I expect the fighter to have their win equity later in the fight. So I'm going to put slightly more on the round 2 prop, but, slightly like say the round 2 prop is plus 500, The round 3 prop is plus 850. I'll put 0.15 of a unit on the round 2 prop and a tenth of a unit on the round 3 prop. You can do the same thing here. Put 0.15 on the Tigers to win games 2, 3, and 5 prop at 12-1, and then 0.1 on the Tigers to win games 2, 4, and 5 at 22-1.
Okay. And you like an under in this game, Guardians, Tigers.
Yeah, again, I made it 5.8. We have wind blowing in here about 9 miles an hour from left field. If you are just tuning into baseball for the playoffs, you should note that Progressive Field has seen a dramatic park factor increase this season for left-handed home runs. For guys pulling the ball to right field, there is this increased wind tunnel effect that we've seen in Cleveland this year, blowing out to right field, swinging it from essentially like a well below average offensive park to maybe the most aggressive home run park for left-handed hitters in all of baseball, even more so than Yankee Stadium. But the wind is blowing in from left field today, and it's blowing in at 9 miles an hour. And we have 2 left-handed starters getting that wind blowing in to the pull side for right-handed hitters. So that should knock down the projected total for today with 2 southpaw starters. So yes, under 6.5 to minus 117. It's borderline under 6 at plus money. I think even 6 at plus money is fine.
Okay, excellent. There you go. That one's, again, an early start today, 4:08 Eastern. Guardians hosting the Tigers in game 2 with the Guardians leading 1-0.
This just feels like an under in every game of this series, too. These teams are going to struggle to score against one another, considering how aggressively they're going to use the bullpens, having the day off yesterday, a day off tomorrow. They could both be highly aggressive with their bullpens. That said, I did bet the over, I would lean to the over on outs for Matthew Boyd. I know he only went 4 in his last start, but this is a pretty soft matchup for him. He may get in a groove. I'm not going to bet it. I'm not going to bet the over 12.5 outs, but I would lean that direction, and I'd lean the over strikeout totals on both pitchers. They were juiced up to levels that I wasn't comfortable with.
Speaking of that very market, Royals, Yankees, game 2 tonight, 7:38 Eastern, Reagan's Rodon, the pitching matchup. Yankees are favorites. Total is at 7.5. I think you played at 8 yesterday, but you like both starting pitchers to go over their outs props.
Yeah, over 15 and outs for both of these guys at plus money. Would want plus money on either. You look at the game logs for Rodon, the Yankees, Aaron Boone, and this is something Boone does. He'll let his guy go back out with clean bases to start the inning if he gets through the 5th, and then the moment he gives up a hit, he's coming out of the game. And especially if he has another left-handed bat that he's potentially looking to neutralize at the start of that 6th inning, I think Rodon gets to exactly 15 or exactly 16 outs more often than not in this matchup. And Reagan's is so much better than the Royals bullpen, so much better than the middle relievers the Royals can bring in. I think his manager will trust him enough to leave him out there for this 6th inning as long as he's pitching well. So I do lean over on the outs again, even though there was an off day yesterday and there's an off day tomorrow. This is actually a soft matchup for both of these starters because it puts both teams in their lesser offensive split. The Royals were around league average against right-handed pitching this year. They dropped, though, to 26th against left-handed pitching in the second half, or 26th overall in the season. They had a 66 WRC plus against lefties since August 1st. Again, Vinny Pasquantino not in their lineup over the month of September, but still, they just, were in the floor of the league against left-handed pitching down the stretch. The Yankees had the best offensive baseball against right-handed pitching. They dropped to 10th against lefties. They go from a 127 WRC plus to a 107. So still above average, but a substantial drop-off in effectiveness. Now, as I said, I like the over on outs recorded for both props. I do not like the strikeout total overs for either pitcher. Even though both of these teams show their lesser split, they actually still have an above-average strikeout rate against left-handed starters. So I do think the strikeout totals could be a trap, but I do think both potentially induce weak contact and get innings and get outs and pitch deeper into this contest. Again, I want plus money on those 15.5 out props considering the off days, but I do think both get there ultimately. Again, I don't trust either bullpen, and I don't think their managers do either. Both kind of rank around league average, both by stuff plus, location plus, I should say pitching plus, and underlying indicators, expected FIP, strikeout minus walk rate across the board. The best ranking for either of these teams is about 10th or 11th in any of those categories, and generally speaking, they kind of average out closer to league average bullpens. So I have not trusted these pens all year. I don't think their managers trust them particularly. And also, we have a good, plate umpire here in terms of unders. The rest of this series, we're going to get 3 very, very good under umpires. Game 2, we have Ryan Blakeney, career 55.4% to the under, a 6.8% ROI if you bet the under in all of Blakeney's games throughout his career. Game 3 is going to be Lance Barrett, who's more of an over umpire. But Game 5, if this goes to a Game 5, we're going to get Lance Barksdale, who, again, is one of the best under umpires in the Action Labs database. Career 5.2% to the under across more than 550 games. So Barksdale, an under machine. If this gets to Game 5 and we get the same pitching matchup, it would potentially be Reagans and Rodon. They're going to get a second really good pitching umpire for that matchup. So I like the under today. I made this total about 7, would bet the under 7.5 to -110. I also made the first 5 total 3.7. So I like the first 5 under 4 to -110. And then going back to those exact series outcome props that I mentioned with the Tigers, these I actually bet because I project value on the Royals right now to win in Game 5. I think I made that line about plus 650 and there was I made that line about plus 600 and there was a plus 650 out there. But I would rather bet the Royals exact series outcome props, again, to win both Reagan starts, so to win Games 2 and Games 5, and then to win either Game 3 at 17-1 or to win Game 4 at 22-1. Again, you can find all of that information in opening pitch. I also logged it in the Action Network app. But I think that's a better option, betting the Royals to win Games 2, 3, and 5 at 17-1 or to win Games 2, 4, 5 at 22-1, rather than just taking them straight up to win the series 3-2 at plus 650. I think that's how they get it done, is winning both of these Reagan starts. No value for me on either side of this matchup. No value on the series money line right now. I make the Yankees about -230, but I would bet the Royals exact series outcomes and the under in this matchup. I really like the under, and I think I'm going to like it even more if this gets to a potential Game 5 and we can factor in more bullpens and also an even better under umpire.
So Reagans would be their guy in Game 5. Is Rodon the guy for the Yankees, or is there an angle for? I can't imagine it's Cole, right? Unless it depends on how today goes, I guess.
So Cole would be, I believe Cole's on full rest in Game 4. I'd have to double check the schedule, but with the extra off days, it really kind of like shook it out where the Yankees are able to pitch their top 2 pitchers twice each, Game 1, 2, 4, and 5. They could go to Clark Schmidt at some point. As I mentioned, you kind of want to keep the Royals in their lesser split against left-handed pitching. All the other Yankees pitchers are right-handed. Cole and Heel, and they left Stroman off the roster. But Clark Schmidt, I think, would be their 4th option if they needed one. And in a 7-game series, I would expect Schmidt to start a Game 4. And he projects pretty well. If anything, the Royals would probably try to want to move off of Waka or just roll their 3 starters over again and again. Just go Lugo Waka or Lugo Reagans Waka, in games. I guess it would be 3 or Lugo Waka Reagans games 3, 4, and 5 if it gets there. So yeah, they want to avoid using Alec Marsh or number 4 starter if they can. The Yankees, I think, would be a little more content to use Clark Schmidt because he doesn't project really any worse than Heel or Rodon. It's just the handedness splits and keeping the Royals facing a lefty.
Okay, very good. Sean, remind the people, and I apologize again, I'm getting back in the seat here. Remind the people of when opening pitch will be available. Is it every weekday?
Every day during the MLB postseason, every single day. I wrote for Saturday and Sunday. I did not want to. Believe me, I did not want to. After that UFC card on Saturday night, writing Game 2 previews in the wee hours of the morning was not the most fun. But yeah, we're going to continue to pump this out every day that we have a playoff game during the playoffs. And we will be here for Payoff Pitch every weekday that we have a playoff game during the postseason.
Yes, that is the case. We will have BJ Cunningham tomorrow for the National League side for the Game 3s in those series with the Mets and Phillies and the Padres and Dodgers. Anything else before we go on these 2 games today?
No, I don't think so. And, we covered the National League updated series prices as well. Just keep an eye on any Freddie Freeman news that may pop today. It was weird seeing him come out of that game, and the fact that the lines have ticked towards the Padres, I think, are encouraging. I'll be back to talk about the National League Game 3s tomorrow, but if you want my bets in advance, you can find them in the Action Network app. I'm on totals in both of those matchups.
All right, very good. Sean Zerillo, find him in the Action app at Zerillo throughout this MLB postseason. Exciting. We're here every weekday, as Sean said. We'll record first thing, 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, and then get these out. Of course, you're listening now, but as soon as we finish recording, we'll get those out. And we know we have some earlier first pitches with these DS schedulings and the TV times and whatnot. So.
And not to harp on it, but like sometimes we're gonna get 48 hours between these games, like we are for these games today. So if you want my bets at the numbers I bet them, you're gonna have to follow me in the app. You're not gonna get the same price target I got 48 or 36 hours later.
All right. Very good. Okay, that's it for Sean Zerillo, Brendan Glasheen. Thanks for tuning in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. Every weekday, we bring you Payoff Pitch to cover this MLB postseason. Best of luck. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday morning.